Hey guys, what is going on? It is RC Knockout and I am back with another video. Now, if you're new to the channel, my name is Nolan. In today's video, I have got my Traxxas Summit out with me. Now, I brought it out today, guys, to test it to see, is this thing still capable of crawling now that I've swapped it over to brushless? So if you've been watching the videos on this machine, it started out bone stock, had the stock electronics, then I ended up gearing it up from a 14 tooth pinion to a 17. And then I geared it down from a 68 tooth spur gear down to a 62. So when I geared it up, that very first run, I took it to the sand dunes in Michigan, and I blew that motor. So I was thinking, do I replace the 775 motor, or do I swap it over to brushless? And in the end, guys, if you've been watching the build, you know that I swapped it over to brushless. Now, it's basically running the exact same motor and ESC setup that comes stock in a Traxxas eRevo 2.0. Which is basically built on the exact same chassis as this. The only disadvantage of this setup is that it's not sensored. So it's a sensorless brushless. So if you don't know what that means, at low RPM, low throttle input, it doesn't spin smoothly, the motor. The electric motor does not spin smoothly at low RPMs until I guess it balances out. I don't know exactly why, but it's called cogging. And typically when you want to crawl or go very slow, a censored brushless setup is the way to go, either that or just a brush setup. And this was brushed with the 775 motor and the XL2 or XLV2, whatever the ESC that was in this. It's a good power system for this size of vehicle, which is technically, Traxxas calls it a 110, but this is a 1/8. You compare this to any Arma or any other RC in this class, and it's going to, dimensions wise, this is the size of a 1/8 scale. So I don't know why Traxxas puts 110 on it, because that doesn't make sense. But anyway, guys, have it out today to see, can it still crawl? We got some rocks and stuff out here. I'm going to go on the trails. We're going to crawl it around and see, can it still crawl now that I've swapped it over to brushless? I am having an issue with the diff, the front differential locker, I should say. The servo's like getting caught. Anytime I do need to lock that rear diff, I'm going to have to do it by hand. I'll have to assist it because otherwise it just catches and just keeps on running that servo until it's probably going to burn that servo up. So that's the only issue I can think of right now. But I can still lock them. I just can't really do it on the fly. Oh, and the other thing, guys, totally forgot. If you've been watching the most recent video, most recent upgrades I did was this right here. I put on all steel drive shafts. So steel drive shafts, I don't remember the brand. They were about $25 for a pair. These are like some knockoff ones, but I decided to take the chance on these ones because it has these blue collars or black collars. So the pin is completely covered up in there. And I like drive shafts where the pin is completely covered up so I don't have to worry about the pin coming out. That's like the number one thing that happens to drive shafts. It's not that they break because they're weak. It's because they fall apart at the joint. So that's why I went ahead and took a chance on these cheap ones. There's some cheaper ones from China. So I think a little over $50 for the 2 pairs, or for the set of 4. And then the other thing I did, oh, I also put a center drive shaft in. And, well, you can't see the center drive shaft. Oh, you can a little bit. Hot Racing. Supposedly that's a Hot Racing drive shaft. I didn't know it was Hot Racing. I thought it was another knockoff one like these, because it has the exact same blue and black collars. Still running that same gearing setup. The 17 tooth pinion and the 62 tooth spur gear, and that spur gear is metal. It's hardened steel. So basically everything in the drivetrain, aside from, I guess, probably some of the gears in the transmission, are all metal at this point. Oh, and the other thing I did was, I destroyed the differentials on 4S. The very first run of this thing, testing it out on brushless, like dashing, well, the very first run I did a speed test on this, and the top speed on 4S was 38 miles per hour. And then I decided to go ahead and test it on 6S. It went like 51 or 52 miles per hour. So it was actually pretty impressive. But I was easing onto the throttle. I was really rolling onto the throttle during that video. So I didn't do any hard launches. I wasn't doing big wheelies and stuff. So really the first time I got it out and took it to a park to bash it, it broke like that. It was down for the count pretty quick, actually. I was pretty surprised. But I think it partially could have been my fault because I accidentally had my rear locking diff on. So what ended up happening was it tore up the spider gears within the differential, which is a major bummer. But and this is not a fun RC to work on. I've probably said it before. The Traxxas Summit, it has the same setup as my 116 eRevo, where it's not fun to take this thing apart, especially if you have to get all the way to the differentials in there. because the differentials are like cocooned in the bulkhead, and it just takes a lot of screws and a lot of removing to get to the front or the rear diffs. That's why I didn't like it. But what I ended up doing, guys, I replaced the diffs. I put some Hot Racing hardened steel spiral cut diff gears in it. So I'm hoping we don't have any issues with stripping gears, because when I opened it up, I thought I had stripped the rear diff. That's actually what I thought happened, but it was not what happened. What actually had happened was it was the spider gears within the differential that had actually gotten chewed up. And then in the end, I just ordered a whole new differential with the housing, and then just replaced that new gear with the Hot Racing one. So I swapped out for Hot Racing in the rear and Hot Racing in the front. So we got hardened steel helical cut gears now, but I'm hoping this thing can take a little bit more bashing now. Now I'm going to be running on 4S, guys. I think the batteries I'm running are 6200 milliamp, 70C discharge rate. I can't remember the brand of the packs. They're hard packs, so. If you haven't seen this, I put the Pro Line body mount system on, so it does not have clips anymore. It's clipless. The only issue is I had to take off the exhaust cage bar that goes across here and the one that goes across there. So I don't like that, because the grub screws that screw into the post for the Pro Line body mount system, they aren't long enough where I could get them to extend all the way up through those little exo cage pieces. So I had to undo them, which I don't really like. I prefer the look of them, and I think that really helps protect the body in these areas too. So now that I don't have that, I'm much more likely to scratch this thing and probably bust the Lexan up if I tumble it really hard. So I wasn't a big fan of that, but otherwise it works very well. It's just basically these nuts that you unscrew, and then you just screw them back on, so you don't have to worry about losing body pins or anything like that. Also, guys, this has got the RPM arms on the front and the rear, so that's all been upgraded to RPM. I've been talking for a long time, so let's go ahead, get on the trail, and we're gonna crawl this thing on rock and see how she does. Here's a closer look at the power system. Basically, it's a 2200 kV VXL motor that would come in the eRevo 2.0, and that's also the VXL 6S ESC that would come in the eRevo 2.0. Also, another upgrade I have in this is I have the Traxxas rear chassis brace stiffener. I also tightened up the collars on the shocks quite a bit when I had the shocks off, because it's hard to spin these when they're on the car, especially spin them down that far. So when I had it off, when I was disassembling the diffs, I went ahead and I cranked those down pretty far. They're about 2/3 of the way down now. Not quite as much in the back, but it's the front that has a lot of that bobbing problem. Like it kind of just rolls whichever way you kind of go. The other thing I did was I also put Hot Racing servo horn and the actual shifting fork for the locking diffs on the front, and the back is now Hot Racing. And those were pretty expensive. Whether or not I needed that, I probably didn't. It's kind of just a rash decision to just go ahead and buy those. So looking back, I think they were like 35 bucks for just those 4 little pieces, 2 forks and 2 horns. Really probably isn't worth it, but I got it. I thought it looked cool with the blue anodized coloring that goes with a lot of the other blue aluminum upgrades I have, like the hub carriers. But yeah, let's go ahead and get her turned on. Alright guys, and here we go. It's going to be a lot more difficult to crawl having the brushless system in. Also with the higher gearing, it's just sensorless systems aren't really set up for crawling. But I actually did not notice too bad of cogging. I tested a little bit just going up some stairs and stuff around my house, and really it didn't cog nearly as bad as I thought it would. I thought I'd have a lot of issues, but we're just going to have to see once we actually get on the trail and get on the rocks how well this thing can crawl. So right now, guys, all of the differentials are wide open. Steering is also very sluggish on the Summit. The servo saver is not, the spring in it is not very stiff. And this does actually have upgraded servos too. This has the 2075X servos, which are the metal geared ones from Traxxas. And I don't know if they have any more power, but I think just because that servo saver is so soft, it just doesn't turn very well. Especially if you're at a stop. Like there, that's full turn to the right. It's not turn, you have to go forward for it to actually turn. And same thing's true, it can turn a little bit better to the left. So yeah, kind of disappointing. So there probably are ways to fix that. I've heard of fixes, but not sure. All right guys, we're getting close to the spot where the rocks start, and there's a ton of mosquitoes around me. just hovering around me, which is very annoying. I think for some of this, we're definitely gonna have to lock up the diff. So right now, everything's still open. Let's get on this side. Really not too bad. I really love the lights on the Summit. It's one of the coolest features, I think. A little bit of cogging. There, that diff's being open. It doesn't want to climb up that. Ooh. Kind of did. I think we are going to have to put the diff lock in, so I'm pretty sure this is just the rear. Nope, that's the front. Because it's doing that thing. I need to assist. I need to like push it. Isn't it that one? Oh no, it's the one on the other side. Okay. It locked up though. It finally locked up. I was pushing on the wrong one. I was pushing on the 2-speed servo, I think. So now all the diffs should be locked, which now, that's no problemo. I might just leave them locked, because that front one, it's too annoying. See, there's cogging right there. So if you're not familiar with cogging, that's cogging, but really, it's not doing too bad. Like, I still feel like I have pretty good control over it. Let's come down this right here. This looks pretty rugged. Come up that, no problemo. Also, guys, if you're liking this video, go ahead and give it a big thumbs up. I would greatly appreciate it. I put a lot of time and effort into making these videos, and anytime you guys are watching, and especially if you're hitting that thumbs up button, I really do appreciate it. That's what really motivates me to put out more and more content for you guys, that you guys really enjoy it. That's what I want to know. So the likes are what really tell me that. Bringing her down. That's a sweet shot right there. Okay, so the rear is open right now, but the front is still locked up. The easiest way to tell if it's open or closed is I just flip it on its side like this. And when you put it on its side, I'll give it some throttle. Okay, that one's unlocked because it's sending all the power to that one. Now is the front one. Nope, the front one's locked. That doesn't make sense. So the only option for the Summit is all the way back. That's both the front and rear diffs unlocked. One forward, it's just the front diff locked. And all the way forward, that's front and rear. But I think it'd be more fun to have the rear diff locked. So when I was bashing, I could have sworn I had just the rear diff locked, but maybe I had both of them locked up. Or maybe I had it open and I had the front locked. I don't know. I probably did something myself that caused it to destroy that original diff. But I don't think they would be able to hold up to brushless power for very long anyway. But yeah, let's get her flipped back over so now we know she is locked in the front, unlocked in the back. You definitely notice it's a sensorless setup, but I don't feel like it's taken away the crawlability completely. It definitely, the steering is what's really bothering me right now. Since I'm keeping that front locked because I'm having so many issues with that servo, the front has no steering. I might have to actually lock up the rear. Oh, am I even in the crawling gear? I wasn't, guys. I've been in the second gear that whole time. I'm a moron. That would have made this a lot easier. There. That's where I want the tires, right there. Come on up, baby. Come on up. But now the rears are unlocked. And see, it doesn't have that holding. It can't hold on the hill. We really want to get that right tire, that driver's side tire right up on this like rock right there. But I just don't have the steering. You can see it keeps on wanting to push me into that. And the issue is, the one issue with the Summit is it's not going to be the greatest crawler in the world. Okay, that's undercut right there, so maybe that's not going to work. And like I said, she doesn't have that hold on the hill. It can't hold, so I have to keep constant throttle. But look at that. She climbed up it. Sweet. That's pretty impressive. We're going to go that way. Passenger tire. See, the control arms, the suspension arms on the Summit actually get hung up on stuff fairly easily. Which that wouldn't happen as likely with a solid axle truck. I mean, the axle, you can hit the pumpkin up against stuff, but this, it's easy to get caught up right along on the suspension arms, especially if you go over a rock and it comes up and it's pointed and it gets stuck. right up in between the arm, in between the plastics. If a little like bit of rock gets caught up under here, like if it's a pointy rock, you're never gonna get off of it. All right, let's bring her back this way. See, with all the moss on it, and these are also called the Rock Rage tires, guys, but I don't know. I don't have any experience with the stock tires because when I bought this Summit, it was slightly used, so it already had these tires on it, so I don't have any comparison with the stock Canyon tires, but I'm not the biggest fan of these tires. They definitely can't hold up to brushless power because they're not, I can't steer either, so it keeps on steering me into the tree. This is probably the biggest issue. Like, that's almost more frustrating than it being sensorless, is that she can't turn. When that steering has too much tension on it, it cannot turn. Okay, see, now we're probably in a position though where we could hit the control arm and get caught up on it. You really got to position it just right. Yeah, these Rock Rage tires are meant for rock, but I don't know, this type of rock with all this moss on it, it's wet, it doesn't do the greatest. Part of me wants to unlock that front diff. Oh, there we go, guys, we made it. Kind of a stroke of luck, to be honest, because she didn't want to go over that. Let's get like a shot from behind it climbing. Like, at speeds like that, it really doesn't crawl too bad. But when it's trying to hold tension, that's where the issue is. I'm trying to hold tension because if I let off, that's what happens. It doesn't have a drag brake. But like at that speed, it's fine. But once you start getting bound up a little and there's tension on it, she don't like that. But look at that. Sweet. Also, guys, if you're not subscribed to my channel, please consider doing so. And if you do, make sure to hit that notification bell, so then you'll be notified when I come out with new videos, because there's going to be more tests with this. We're obviously going to, if it makes it through this without tearing up the diffs, which I would hope it does, since this isn't really a bashing session, if it makes it through this, we're definitely going to go test this thing with some more high-speed bashing and see if those new diffs that I put in will actually hold up to it, and the new drive shafts, by the way. New center, new... Nice. Ooh, that's nice, but it can't hold position. There, it was starting to get bound up. Nice. I wonder if it could go up over this. It was able to come down this, but I don't know if it can go back up over it. Ooh. She definitely has some power. She's like just right at that point where it kind of wants to bite. That one does, but it's not gonna do it. Maybe with momentum it will, but we'll save that for another time. I want to keep on going before we break this thing. Sweet. Nice. We might be able to do this. It's pretty steep right there, but if this tire right here can grip, then we might be able to make it up. Okay, that one fell, but that one's pulling. Ooh. Sweet. That's sweet. I like that. I like that a lot. Doesn't that look cool, guys? I'd say she can still crawl now that she's brushless. I mean, probably not as well, but we can still do it. Ooh. We don't want to go off that ledge right there. That's a ledge. Now, what I want to go do now, guys, is there's a whole root section over here. A lot of steep roots and mud, and I want to see what the Summit can do on this. If we go right here, we might be able to make it. Okay, we can. But can we make it up that? Wow, we actually did. I was at this exact same location climbing up this hill, and it actually made it pretty well with my 110 scale axial SEX10. But I did kind of a mod to that. Not kind of, I did quite the mod. I went ahead and I put self-tapping screws through the inside of the tires, and that thing was able to claw up like all of this, all of it. It was amazing. As long as it didn't get high centered, it was gripping on rock, it was gripping in the moss, it was gripping on the roots. It really was amazing. Now, what do you guys think about me doing that same thing with the Summit? I mean, that would make this thing, I wouldn't say unstoppable, but that would be crazy if I put, now I'd have to sacrifice some tires because I'd have to put holes through the tires. I have to get in from the inside of the tire and screw those from the inside out. Then I also probably have to reinforce the foam. So it has to be a crummy pair of tires that I'm not worried about destroying. And I could potentially use the ones that came on my EXB. Those ones are trash. Those are 3.8s. They're probably a little bit smaller 3.8s. They're definitely a little bit skinnier 3.8s than this. But they're 3.8s, so they should theoretically be able to fit on this machine. And I don't probably mind if I destroy them, but I think one of them maybe has a spun hex, which is maybe why I can't use, I don't know. We'll figure it out, but let me know in the comments, guys, if you think that's a cool idea to put nails in Summit tires, screws, and try crawling it after doing that mod. I'm pretty impressed. I want to do it with my other crawlers now. And like the screws actually stayed in. That's the most amazing part. I think a lot of it had to do with gluing them in from the inside. I know a lot of people, when they do self-tapping screws, they tap them in from the outside in because that's what's easier. Or I guess you'd call it studded tires. That's just so much easier to do, but I wanted something that was different, that would be cool and that would work, and it actually, one of my things actually worked. So in very rough terrain like this, and it's very hard to capture that on camera how rough this is. See, it does not like it when you let go of the gas and let it roll back. As soon as you get back on the throttle again, it hates that. That's probably the most annoying thing about this. Let me get up here. Get up over the top. I love just watching the tires fight for grip. It's one of the most enjoyable things about crawling, is just watching the tires dig in and look for grip. Now I'm caught on that rear shock suspension arm. Yep. And over it she goes. Look at that. She's getting a little bound, but she's doing it. If we make it to the car all right, then she made it through this. And there's definitely some times where I was definitely binding it up. It definitely did not enjoy when it rolls back on steep inclines. This brushless system just does not have what it takes. Let me know, guys, if you do run a censored brushless setup, what you're starting to notice the cogging more, but I'm back up in the higher gear, that's why. So in the lower gear, the cogging is not nearly as bad because the ratio is like 75:1 or something. And this one, I don't know what it is. Significantly more. This is a completely different setup now. The Summit, the last time I brought it here with the brush setup, way more capable. This takes away a lot of the capability. She wants to lift up. Nice. Almost pulling wheelies here on the dirt. Kind of weave. And we are out. Now, since we have a little bit of grass right here, we can test out some of that brushless power, I guess, and hopefully she don't break. So far, no diff issues. Power wheelie. You can't do a wheelie from a stop, I'm convinced. It has too short of a wheelbase where it just hits that back bumper. It needs a wheelie bar. I like the mid-range power it has. It has a lot of torque and there's a lot of mid-range, like that. Like it speeds up quick. Ooh. Lucky I didn't hit that tree. I'm surprised we haven't hit low voltage mode. Now keep in mind, majority of what we've been doing is crawling, but we've probably been here for, see, it's very easy to overdo it. See, this is gonna destroy this body if I keep on doing that. But that body, you can tell, yeah, it's landing right on the Pro Line. Little nuts. Spin it back around. Flyby. You see that three-wheel braking? Like that's, the Summit's known for that kind of. Ooh. If I hadn't stiffened up those shocks, it would have gone over there. Because that suspension bobs and weaves so much. That was pinned. Alright guys, and she just hit low voltage mode. So, if you enjoyed the video, go ahead, give her a big thumbs up. I would greatly appreciate it, and I look forward to seeing you guys in another video. We got more things to come with this Summit. It held up to this bash. This wasn't really a bash, it was a crawl. I did a few almost full speed launches though. So far, let's see, no diff clicking. Let me make sure there's no cars coming. Yeah, no diff clicking. A little bit of squeaks, but that's about all you can ask for, is no diff clicking. So, I will see you in the next video, guys. Take it easy.